Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us today at the Women in Tech panel. My name is Erin Moeller, like Jesus said, and I am the community manager at TIBCO. I will be moderating today's panel. So first, let me introduce you to our panelists. I am pleased to welcome Amanda Brock. She is CEO, OpenUK, highly regarded author and keynote speaker with an expertise in business, tech, legal, and policy. And I'm excited to tell everyone, it was just announced today that Amanda is included on the short list for the Women in IT Awards UK 2021. So congrats for that, Amanda. And Amanda, can you please tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Thanks very much, Erin. It's lovely to be here with you this evening. I am the CEO of OpenUK, as you say. I have been in that role for about 18 months, and we're a slightly unusual organization, actually. We look at open source software, hardware, and data. The three opens, as we call them, open technology, and we're all about the business of open. So we work with people, whether they are UK companies or working in international companies in the UK, whether they're tech or whether they're business. And I have a huge amount of fun in my role working with OpenUK. But before I became CEO here, I was a lawyer for 25 years, and I spent 5 of those as general counsel at a company you might know in the US called Canonical, which is probably Europe's biggest open source company still, I think. And I was the first lawyer employed there back in 2008. Since then, including my 5 years, I've been very involved with the open source community, and I really joined Canonical as a sort of corporate commercial lawyer with a very strong IT experience, and had a complete surprise, I guess, in that I found I really aligned with open source and the values of open source, and just wanted to stay in that for more of my career.
Thank you, Amanda. And next, we have Gloria Kimbwala, who is head of customer success at Gitcoin and a member of Women Who Code Silicon Valley. Gloria, can you tell us how you got your start and what led you to where you are now?
Yeah, hi. Thank you for having me again. I always love what TIBCO does in the community that I get to interact with, so I'm very happy to be here today. I got my start in open source just as a developer. At the time, 4 or 5 years ago, I had a great mentor who said, a good software developer should be generating better knowledge for the community and growing the community at all times. And so he instilled on me the importance of open source contributions. And I didn't really realize that that I was in a minority of women who were contributing to open source. I think it's something like 8%. But it was something where I was using a lot of open source software on my projects, and I wanted to give back, and I saw the value in it. Later in my career, I was able to get involved with crypto, and I was able to join Gitcoin. And at Gitcoin, we let open source developers earn crypto by their open source contributions, so they can solve some bug bounties, they can join hackathons, or they can even start projects and get those projects funded by grants from the community. And we love to tell people that they get to quit their job and just do open source full time. But we really value their contributions, and we feel that if the community can see something that is a need in the community, in the greater community, then if they're passionate about it, they should be able to go forth and do it. But when I saw that structure, I saw it specifically benefiting a lot of women who maybe go on maternity leave or maybe can only work part-time. It's something that allows them to continue working and continuing growing and applying their skill set in a non-traditional way.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us, Gloria. So next up, we have Kate Stashney, who is joining us, and I know you must be exhausted, Kate. Kate just finished her conference, DATAcated. So can you tell us how you got started in the community for data lovers?
Yes, absolutely. Thanks for having me here, Erin. Yes, I am exhausted. I just wrapped up a 2-day virtual conference called the DATAcated conference. It was an industry mixed with data event that spanned 2 days and was live streamed. So I'm actually still standing. This is the 3rd day. I stood for the conference as well. But the way I got started, it was actually by accident with data. I was expecting my first child about 7 years ago. And I was at that time working in a consulting firm in the risk management regulatory compliance space. And for those who have gone consulting or, have seen what consultants do, the schedule is a little bit unpredictable. There might be a flight that I have to take or working weekends and nights. And expecting my first child, I just simply couldn't see that happening. I wanted to be there. So I went to people that I knew in the organization and was able to land a work from home gig, which happened to be data analytics and data insights. That was very lucky for me because that was truly love at first sight. I got my first data set, I got my data visualization tool. And from that point on, all I've been talking about literally every day is data storytelling, data visualization, and the data community in general.
Nice. Well, welcome, Kate. Welcome. And next we have Monica. Monica is a serial entrepreneur, co-founder, CEO, and CM roles at B2B startups, and also at Alien Vault and open source at SIM and Aerospike. She's passionate about mentoring and coaching emerging leaders. She's on the executive board at How Women Lead and fundraiser at How Women Invest. Wow, you're busy. So can you tell us how you got your start in tech, Monica?
Thank you, and happy to be here today. It was really funny. When I was an undergrad, I was torn. Did I want to study economics? Did I want to study philosophy? Or did I want to do marine biology? And I'm like, I had no idea as to what I wanted to do. And when I started with my first computer science class, I'm like, okay, wait a minute, this is a fundamental capability here. And if I can get into tech, then I can decide later whether I want to go into financial institutions or, other businesses and what have you. So it was just by chance, but I did my undergrad in computer science at Rice University and then my grad school at Madison, Wisconsin, and spent my first part of my career at Apple writing code up for Mac OS. So, and then the startup bug hit. And so that's when I took my engineering background and ability to understand product and so on to helping startups go to market. And so one of the startups that I launched here in the US was Alien Vault, which was recently acquired by AT&T. And then I actually took Aerospike and open sourced that technology as well.
Oh, nice.
And then most recently, I was CEO of a cyber intelligence company. But today I'm working with How Women Lead, which is trying to pull together senior executive women to basically, improve the state of women in companies, if you will. And we launched our first venture fund through How Women Invest. We did that last year and raised $10 million in less than 6 months. And I think we've invested in 2 companies, one in healthcare analytics, another one in workforce talent management. And I think we're ready to invest in our third. And this is just our first fund. So really excited to help invest in more women technologists, women CEOs, and make a difference in the world here.
That's great. That's great. Welcome, Monica. So to set the context of the discussion today, women are continuing to make progress in the high-tech industry during the past several years. From software development to innovation, women's contributions continue to make a difference. So it's important that we continue to foster and promote women's participation in tech. Amanda, I'm interested in your thoughts on what is the responsibility of leadership within their organization and community.
I think it's very high. We each are very aware of the circumstances we've all come through over the years and what we've all had to face along the way. And as we look around our organizations, I think we see increasingly diverse organizations, but that comes from the responsibility of leadership. And I feel sort of personally very engaged in that, and that I have a huge responsibility to make sure that I'm bringing around me a diverse group of people. And I don't think we actually have to look as hard as we might think to create that. I think if we can all be blind to gender, ethnicity, etc., in some ways, and see the true talent that's sitting in this group of people around us, and make it easy for them to feel like they belong and they can belong in our organizations, then I think that's the key to it. and we have a very diverse group within the context of the UK, which obviously has a different mix to the US, but we have a very diverse group running our organization, participating in our organization. And I think it's just being open to saying to people, would you like to do this, where they might not put themselves forward? And I think that encouragement and opportunity that you can create all around you for people is really important.
Great. Gloria, did you have any input on that?
Yeah, so for me, I always think of like, can we remove unnecessary boundaries for people? So a lot of times people have barriers, and my barriers might not be the same as someone else's barriers to the entry, but when you've traditionally not had access to a space, you don't know that you're not included in the space or what needs to happen to join that space. But when you can get there from a leadership perspective, they have, that top down view, and they can sit there and say, oh, why aren't, for our instance was like, why aren't there women in management roles? Well, our women's department didn't know the steps of how to go through management. They didn't just innately know. And so they needed just someone to say like, what are the rules or what are the steps? And one of the things was that they had to create, a question, a software engineering question, and it had to be approved by some time, but they had no understanding of the process. But it took someone from upper management to say, why isn't this happening? And why, like, what is the barrier that's there? And removing that barrier. And then naturally within, over a year, we had a lot more women in management because they knew the process. Not that they weren't able to do the process, which is what I think most people say, like, oh, well, they, from the bottom down looks like, oh, well, we don't have women in management because they're not qualified. But it wasn't that. They just didn't know what the process was because they had been excluded from the process for so long. So I think having that top-down response and being able to move a lot of barriers to entry is really helpful for an organization. And they should always be questioning, why is this way? Who do we need to talk to in order to make the change? And what change do we need to make?
Yeah, agree. Kate, did you have any additional thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, definitely agree with Gloria and Amanda here. I think it's all about being intentional from the top-down perspective, and like Gloria mentioned, actually looking at it and having a perspective of saying, do we have enough diversity in leadership, or do we have enough diversity in tech, and really questioning it from a perspective of, are we providing these opportunities to these individuals that we want to see at the table? And I think it goes a little bit further than just leadership. I do think that the individual themselves has to be willing to step up. And I think it's sort of a double-edged sword, right? We need the leadership to provide the opportunity. But a lot of times what I've noticed is women tend to not think that they're ready for whatever role that is put in front of them. I've been there myself personally when I would see a role that had 10 years of experience. I'm kind of crazy though. I still applied and ended up kind of getting but I have this weird self-belief that I think most people don't have. It's really based on just, I guess, my upbringing and people telling me, hey, you're going to do great in life. But I do realize not everybody has that. And I noticed friends of mine, especially women, that would always say, oh, there's an opportunity, but I don't think I'm ready, or I don't think I can take this leadership position. And it does go back to them thinking that they personally are not ready, even though leadership does go out of their way and say, we'd like you to take this opportunity. So it's definitely both sides.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting. So Monica, I'm interested to see your input to this question, only because I know that you've worked at several different companies. So what is your feedback?
Yeah, well, so, I think leadership has a responsibility for raising awareness, right? Number one, making it clear that this is a good business decision. When you increase diversity, you increase different perspectives. And so you enable more innovation. And it's really good for business, number one, right? And then number two, basically, I think when leadership asks, okay, so why do we not have diversity? Or what can happen in order to enable more diversity? Again, it raises the importance, it raises the attention of this issue. And that gives people space for both conversation as well as taking action in order to make it happen. And it's not just about hiring. It's not just about bringing people in, right? As some of you said, what's really important then is about making sure that those people that are brought in that are maybe different from the majority feel comfortable, they are actively included, right? That the rest of the organization has some training about the fact that, you know, most of the time you just do your work and you don't even think about the issues around diversity and how people may not feel included, may not feel a part of the team, if you will, and how automatically many times we simply don't see them, we don't acknowledge them, we don't we assume maybe that they are not capable, etc. So I think just from raising the awareness of the importance of this issue, that it makes business sense, it's the right thing to do, and you know, here's the tools and the training to raise awareness and to make it happen. So I think leadership has a lot of work here to do.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Monica. So I want to switch tracks a little bit and talk about individual responsibility. So Gloria, I'm interested in what you think about what do you do when you're the only woman at the table? And what do you do to navigate an organization where you may not feel like you belong?
Yeah, so I think in my spaces, I'm quite often the only, like I work in tech, you know, I'm a house of all boys, and I'm a drummer as a musician. So there's usually like very minorities of women's spaces. But within that, you know, you kind of have to remember that you are there for, you are already like got the role, you know, like if they didn't believe that you could do something, you wouldn't have had that role. And your perspective can actually change quite a bit and like save money. So there is a part of you that's like, your perspective is there for a reason and can like be extremely beneficial. And what I always think about is like all the products that went to launch where if one person from a different perspective would have just voiced something, they might have saved the company like, you know, millions of dollars, or saying like, no, this is like the wrong time of the year if you're going to launch in India because it's, you know, whatever. Just having that perspective is so helpful. And so I usually try to take confidence in that. But there is like that side of imposter syndrome that does kind of come up a lot of times. And I realize that imposter syndrome never goes away. Like I think of, you know, Oprah and, you know, even my mentor, Jack Dorsey, he always talked about like, he never felt like he was sound in his role or that he could do it, but everybody learns from actually doing. So if you have the thing that you want to do, it's often great to do it scared and to think, okay, what did I learn from this? So nothing is really like a failure. It's actually like a learning point. And every time I think about that, I think about Tesla's How to Launch a Rocket, where it's all the ways that Tesla was launching the rocket and it totally was wrong. And they focused on what they learned from the wrongness of the rockets rather than saying it was a complete failure, we're not going to do it again. And so I think of that as a person, like when you are the only, yes, it can be daunting. You feel like you're one of the 300, you know, people waiting for the rest to come. But you're there, you're hired, you have capabilities that are very visible and even more that aren't visible, but your perspective is what's needed to be shared.
I like that. That's great. So Kate, I know that you've started off on a new role creating the DATAcated conference, and you do a lot around community as well. So do you have any additional insights?
Yes, I think from an individual perspective, I think it's all about owning your own career path and kind of reminding yourself that you are the boss of your own life, whether or not you're currently working for an employer or not, and trying to navigate that career in various ways. So for example, when I had to navigate to a data career, I had to take control of that. Or when I felt like I was ready for promotion, I had to take control of that. And that's something that didn't come natural to me because, again, maybe it might be a cultural perspective, but I felt like somebody from higher up would come to me and say, okay, Kate, you're ready now, you're going to be promoted, or you deserve more money. No, that simply just doesn't happen. At least it didn't happen to me. It wasn't until I raised my hand and said, I think I, should be at this position, or I should be doing this. So yes, it's all about owning your career. I currently am running my own show, so it's all about owning my own career at this point, because I run the DATAcated conference, the Academy, which is an online school, and the DATAcated media company. So it's been really keeping me busy, but I always remember kind of the journey that's gotten me there, and it was all about raising my hand and trying to be the person that I wish I saw in the community, right? So in my opinion, it's all about kind of the see her, be her perspective. Because it was early on, I think I was still in college when I attended a conference. This was in person, clearly way past pre-COVID. And there was a woman speaker. I think she was from the Fed Bank of something. And she gave a presentation, and her confidence I don't remember her name, but I still remember her confidence of how she looked on stage. She, gave a presentation and she kind of left. And everyone was in awe of her. And to this day, I'm like, wow, if she could do it, I can do it. So I think it's about owning your career, but also going out of your way to set examples for others that might be watching.
Yeah, I like that. Thank you, Kate. And then Monica, what is your feedback when you walk into a room and you're the only woman in there?
Yes. So the first thing I would say is, unfortunately, many women do feel like they don't belong, that they don't, that they're not qualified, or they shouldn't be there, or what have you. And I would say the first thing is stay, believe in yourself, and find advocates, find friends, find community, people who will support you, whether it's a mentor, what have you. And then the other thing I would say is, when stuff happens, and it will happen, there will be routinely times when you are not seen, that you are not heard, etc., what have you. But just acknowledge that, if they knew better, they would do better, right? It's not personal. It's not about you. And so, don't take things personally, and just kind of stand your ground and do your thing. Is what I would say.
That's great. That's great advice. Amanda, did you have anything to add?
Oh, there's so much that the other three have said here that I relate to. I think I've told you before, and my friend Karen Sandler took me aside about 2 years after I joined Canonical. And she said to me, right, what's going on here? Every time you speak, you apologize for yourself. You're a really good speaker. You know all the information. What are you doing? And I was so concerned that there's technical areas that I don't know all the detail in, that I might be wrong about, that I was sort of acknowledging the expertise I thought of everybody else in the room. But what I was really doing was hiding behind it, because I had imposter syndrome. And I'd never even heard of the phrase imposter syndrome. So Karen identified for me very clearly that I had it, and I had it bad. And then I just had to work out how to get over that. And it is that inherent sense that we don't belong. But I think we can take comfort in the fact that almost everybody has it. Even the people who look like and feel like everybody else kind of have it as well. And it's just the degree to which we have it. And I really, really related to what Kate was saying about having that inherent confidence. I mean, I speak all over the world all the time. When I've got something big to do, I feel like I'm going to throw up before I speak. Nobody can come near me because I'm so stressed by it, because I want to do a good job. Yet something in me that is that inherent confidence has said, yes, I'll do it, and gets me through it. And generally I'm told it's a good job, or I wouldn't get asked back. But it's terrifying. And I think just being honest about that we're all scared, that sometimes we all want to run away, but we can't, because we want to actually succeed, and we've just got to do it and step up and do it. But so much there that I relate to. I think you've got a really great panel.
Yeah, I know, that was great. Thank you, guys. We're running out of time, but I do just want to get some quick thoughts on how do you reach out to somebody and make them feel welcome in the community? Thoughts? Kate, do you have some thoughts on that? Like, what do you do to make someone feel welcome?
To make somebody feel welcome, I think having a conversation. This is something that is a bit rare, where when people reach out to me and they say, hey, Kate, I got probably 10 of those today. Do you have a few minutes to get on a call? My sister wants to get into data science, or something like that. And my answer is, for the most part, yeah, sure, let's do it. It might be a couple weeks, ahead if I'm really busy, but I do go out of my way to make myself available just for those quick conversations, because I think that does help others in the community, and they're more willing to help somebody else who comes after.
That's great. Amanda, do you have?
Yeah, I think it's important that we just keep welcoming people in and keep an eye out and spot people, as well as having those people come to us. I mean, I get the same kind of requests, but I also think, pushing those diversity tickets still, I know it's a bit cliched, but they do work, they do have an impact, and I think we should all contribute in that way.
Thank you. And Gloria?
Yeah, I always believe in starting your day with a win. So when anyone is new coming into the space, I just try to say, like, would you love to see some of the easy places to start? Or I would love to show you some of the easy projects that I worked on, and starting your way there is something I believe in. And I do have to share my number one favorite confidence boosting tip is, as a woman, always take a seat, the head seat at the table. I think they usually reserve that for a CEO or someone, but just take it. There's no name tags, you're fine. And then it's just a confidence booster for yourself. So.
Great advice, great advice. And Monica, do you
And
have
all
some final?
what I would say is that, just be aware, listen, right? Be conscious that somebody new is coming in there. And it's not just the first time that they've showed up. It's while they're there the entire time, it's just be kind, be respectful, this should not be uncommon. This should be natural, but just be more aware and conscious that it isn't, it's uncommon, unfortunately. So
I want to thank you, amazing panelists. Thank you so much for joining me today. I like to end on that #BeKind. So you guys have a wonderful rest of your day, and thank you so much.